the best rivalry in sports.
I didn't come into this league or take this position to necessarily make friends.
They've had the upper hand for way too long, so it's going to be fun to watch in the years to come.
I got to put my dog Caleb Williams with her. And after this past year,
Yeah.
I respect this game crazy.
Yeah.
And then he going cold shoulder on your Iceman.
I got it. Iceman! I told you I got it. Iceman!
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the offseason. I'm Cassie Carlson, joined by the Athletic's Dan Weeder, and we have our analyst, Anthony Herron, in the house. Dan, we've been on quite a journey. We were coming to you from Scottsdale, Arizona last week, and then we both went down to Indy for the Final Four while Ant was holding it down in studio, talking a little basketball, or you recovered from the dud of a game that we saw from the lineup.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you and I were in 3 time zones in a span of like 38 hours, and then all of a sudden you have to sit through that basketball game, which you thought was going to be a lot more exciting given the turnout of all the orange in Indianapolis, and it ended up being a little bit of a dud.
Enjoy the basketball talk, Ant?
I mean, I did. For some reason, UConn has been kind of the magic elixir to the Illini offense for a while now. It held them to, 62 points, season low for them. But fantastic season for Brad Underwood, what they've been able to do, best season since 2004, 2005, and no reason to think, whether it's the Balkan Five or not, no reason to think the Illini not going anywhere.
Yeah, that transfer portal is open, so coaches aren't enjoying their end of season for long. I don't even know if Dusty May is able to enjoy it.
Right.
All right, we are 2 weeks out from the NFL draft. We're going to break down some talent the Bears could take in the first round, but first, we just heard a little bit there in the open. Caleb Williams getting his flowers from Commanders defensive end Charles Omenihu, who has him in his top 5 scariest quarterbacks. Take a listen.
No order.
Yep.
Josh, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford,
Okay.
Lamar for sure. I got to put my dog Caleb Williams with her. I ain't going to lie to you, bro. Like, somebody that has shown over and over and over that it ain't over until the fat lady scene. And he can run, and he can make every single throw. That's somebody that you got. I respect the hell out of this game. After this past year,
Yeah.
I respect this game crazy.
Yeah.
Because he done shown it in moments where it's like, bro, it's nut cutting time, and he doing it. And he throwing dots.
Yeah.
And then he going cold shoulder on your Iceman.
Yeah, so that's pretty elite company alongside a bunch of MVPs.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, of course. I don't know that scary is the word I would use to describe Caleb Williams, but it's used as a term of endearment in this case. And to be getting respect from opponents this early in a career is only the sign of the trajectory everyone feels like Caleb is on.
Yeah, I think the one thing we learned last season is that the Bears, Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, they got the rest of the league's attention, right? And when people refer to them as scary, it's the understanding that you are not ever in control of a game, because until that clock hits those 000s, Caleb's got the entire sideline believing that they're going to win the football game. That's a great quality to have on your side. Puts a lot of pressure on the defense, and that's some of what you hear there.
The opposing defense, the term I started using during the season with Cassie, Dan, was that I called Caleb nightmare fuel. That combination of Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson and what that means to the opposing defense. Trying to plan for what's going to happen within the X's and O's, but then the way Caleb can extend the play, the way that Ben Johnson can use your strengths against you. And so not only do you have to account for one of the best offensive minds in the sport, but then you also have this playmaking quarterback who's got such a command of the moment. Critical situations in game where Caleb just seems to be the best version of himself over and over again. That's why opposing defenders are scared of that, because yes, there's still a lot of room for growth, but the things you can plan for, he got better and better at throughout the season, but then the unplanned is really where he really puts fear into the heart of everyone trying to play.
I mean, what comes to mind is the 4th down throw to Rome Odunze against the Packers, where everyone said they were watching it on the sidelines. When that happened, they knew they were going to win. It was the touchdown throw to Colt Kmet to send the divisional into overtime. And you're talking about Caleb Williams being so elusive on the run when he's out of system. Ideally, in Ben Johnson's offense, he is playing in system, and you don't want to coach that out of him. But Ben Johnson was saying at owners' meetings that their scramble tape was horrendous last year. So he feels like they can reach another level.
They're just scratching the surface with that. And to your point, being down at the owners' meetings in Phoenix and understanding that the rest of the league watched those playoff games, right? And so that was on a big stage where people had their attention on what the Bears were doing, and they saw Caleb as, oh, God, like this is, again, it's scary. And Robert Saleh said, look, every time the Bears take a snap, you're defending two plays. You're defending the scheme, and then you're defending the out-of-script stuff. And so that takes twice the fuel, mentally, physically, emotionally, to deal with that for an entire game. And so it's going to be really interesting to see where they go next year, knowing that Ben Johnson's going to take clips like that and throw them right in the trash and go, Caleb, here's the things you need to get better with.
But also every other team has the tape on Caleb Williams when he is so elusive. Is he better than that, though, where he can out-scheme another team's defense because he has that it factor in him?
I certainly believe so. And those second reaction moments, that's frankly what we knew about him in college. Yeah. So that's a big part of why he was the #1 overall pick in that draft cycle, because he was so exceptional in those second reaction moments. But what we saw him get better at throughout the season, and you were both there talking to Ben Johnson on a regular basis, was his ability to try and process the game, to think the game at a higher level, to be ahead of the opposing defense. And that's where the most consistent quarterbacks in football operate. It's not just relying on your physical capabilities. It's recognizing what the opposing defense presents to you and then thinking within the scheme of the play that's called, or if I need to audibilize, how do I defeat the defense with my mind? And that's where we saw Caleb grow so much throughout the season, using his mind to defeat the opposing defense. And that's where even his presence on the sideline, we saw that grow, where Caleb was beginning to coach his teammates on the sideline, breaking the huddle in game. There was just such more command for Caleb in the latter stages of the regular season and during the postseason that allowed the entire offense to flourish. And even the finesse of certain passes, where there was so much horsepower on everything he was doing during the first half of the season, but you could really tell when the comfort came to the fore, more so where he was starting to take a few RPMs off the ball and lead receivers, throw those runners balls that Caleb was talking to both of you guys about.
Here as they go forward. And I think to your point about the scramble drill, Ben sees opportunity for there to be a ton more completions, a ton more yardage within that whole thing, because you got to have route runners being on the same page as the quarterback. You got to teach it up. And Ben acknowledged that, look, like the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers for years put out teach tape on how to do this at a high level. And so the Bears are going to have to dig into that a little bit, teach Caleb a little bit about it, the receivers a little bit about it, and take that next leap in that realm of the passing game.
Well, and I think one thing that Ben wanted to emphasize is, like, he's not absolved of all that either, and he needs to do a better job of scheming open the primary receiver. That was one of the biggest quotes we got last week, is just the onus he put on himself and his offensive coaches. First day of Bears offseason workouts begin in 10 days on April 20th. That's when Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams can actually sit in the meeting room again. And to your point, Ant, they're picking up where they left off. They're not picking up at ground zero where they started last year at this time. And that's why you feel like the ceiling is so much higher with the two of them working together for a second season. Do you think Caleb Williams will be in MVP conversations this year, Dan?
Oh, there's no question that he will be, because that's just the nature of this business. Now,
I should say maybe at week 6.
what I was going to say is there's not a
like
single.
You're putting your money on an hour later.
We saw this with Justin Fields before, right?
Mr. Trubisky. There is not a single MVP conversation that matters to me until the calendar flips to December. And then we can have realistic conversations. Whether he's there in December, I have no idea. But he will be in there at some point between now and then.
All right, you think he's in there in December then, Ant? Bold
I'll say
time.
yes.
You know that.
Yes, I think he will be. Will he win it? That's a different conversation. But I think we'll see a version of Caleb that's worthy of that conversation, yes, because he is so driven. I'm sure you've both seen it on social media like many Bears fans have. He's putting the work in with his playmakers. They're out in LA working on USC's campus and all over the place. They're making sure they're getting on time and in rhythm together as much as possible, turning all these things into muscle memory from QB to pass catcher. And we know they're not done enhancing the offense, whatever playmakers might be there. But the guys Caleb knows that he'll need to count on during the regular season, they're already putting a lot of work in together. So, yes, having that second season in Ben Johnson's offense, I think it's going to pay dividends.
Yeah, and I think you saw the leadership take a step up in the offseason as well, being there when Garrett Bradbury was signing his contract, making sure he saw him, shook his hand at Hallis Hall, texting Kobe Bryant when he signed his big free agent deal as well. Let's talk about the defense. No splash trades or big free agent signings to the defensive line, but Dexter Lawrence requesting a trade out of New York. Is this one that you potentially consider if you're Ryan Poles, or is that price tag and him wanting a new contract just too high, Dan?
I believe the cap hit for the next 2 seasons is north of $26 million.
That's why DJ Moore is no longer.
The Bears are really tight right now against the cap, so I don't think they can make this work at this stage. Now, it frees up a little bit in 2027, and so if you really wanted to move some parts around and do some restructures, but I think you've heard from Ryan Poles about the discipline needed to also understand the future of the guys you have in-house that are going to be demanding bigger paydays as we go forward. So right now, while it feels great to talk about it, I don't think it's practical.
It would be awesome to watch him in a Bears uniform if they were in a different scenario. But they've already invested so much into the defensive front, both in current financial capital with veterans and in draft capital from the last few seasons. So that's where you need those two things to combine to be the best versions of themselves. And this is a coaching staff that we saw the way they could develop the quarterback, the wide receivers, the running back position, the best football we've seen from DeAndre Swift and others in that room. The O-line was so much better. Secondary when healthy. Linebackers. Really the only spot that you didn't see development, that you didn't see enhanced production was the D-line.
Why is that?
I mean, it's a tough spot to really play at an extremely high level anyway. And then also within Dennis Allen's system, to be able to turn the roster over with some additional personnel, I think that's where year 2, we'll see a different version of the Bears D-line. Not necessarily that there's going to be a bunch of different players, but now they do know schematically what's each guy best at, and can they come at the opponents in waves? Montez Sweat is a high-level football player. He's definitively an above-average defensive end in this league, but is he a guy who you just say, roll out the ball, Montez Sweat's going to take a game over? No. But putting him in the best positions to accentuate his skills, especially on passing downs, having other guys who will get them into some predictable 3rd and longs, and so your sort of NASCAR package and pass rushers you can put out there, that's where I think the Bears will be better this coming season. They'll have a better sense for 1st and 2nd down, how to be exceptional, and now you don't necessarily have to blitz to get after the QB on 3rd down because you can allow that defensive front to pin their ears back.
Just talking about Lawrence in general, Dan, I'm in agreement with you that I think they're in the draft and develop stage, knowing that they're going to pay Caleb Williams. They're hopefully going to pay Rome Odunze. Then you're looking at Colston Loveland and Luther Burden, and the list goes on and on. Mind you, Darnell Wright could be extended, and I think that's top of mind for Ryan Poles. But you can't ignore just the impact that Dexter Lawrence has on any defense. 108 pressures when lined up at nose tackle. The next closest, Vita Vea, which is 32. Andrew Billings is on that list somewhere, but he was down at like 16 pressures. So that just shows the impact and the dent that he can make in the pocket when lined up at nose. ESPN's Jordan Reed reported it's possible for the first time since 2021, no defensive tackle could be selected in round 1. That would be really interesting. And obviously that would open up a lot of possibilities, if true, for the Bears with their 2 second-round picks. We're going to table that conversation for the next block. I want to get to the next topic. Ben Johnson, asked by our friend Herb Howard of the Bigs Media about potentially being misunderstood around the league. Take a listen.
When they have those conversations about, well, he said after Packers, or he gave a quick handshake, or he was rude to the sideline reporter before halftime, like, do you think he misunderstood in any way, or does that matter to you?
I didn't come into this league or take this position to necessarily make friends. That's not the case. I love what I do. I love who I'm doing it with. That's the most important thing to me, and everything I do is with them in mind.
Yeah.
Time after time, Ben Johnson asked about his relationship with LaFleur, how he, feels about being outspoken about the whole F the Packers stuff, and he doubles down every single time. I love it, and I think it's interesting. They're all sitting in the same room, and you wonder if he feels ostracized at all in that room, but he seemingly does not care.
And this is incredible to me because it means that there's life back in this Bears-Packers rivalry in a way that we haven't felt in a long time. And Ben is authentically Ben.
Right.
And that's why he got the responses he got last year from the coaches and players around him, because he has one thing, and it's a passion to try to go win that week. And to win that week, you've got to win that day. And to win that day, you got to win that hour. And that's how Ben is wired. And it's contagious. And you see these clips here of how contagious it can be.
Oh, yeah, we forgot about the shirt off moment.
So this is Ben Johnson to a T, and I don't think that's ever going to change.
Did you guys notice at all? Was he, when they took the head coach's photo out there, like, was Ben off by himself?
To do the analyzing, and he was just like sitting there like stone cold.
Just body language, very stoic. Yeah. And Ben Johnson, he was in his first season as a head coach. He's been in the league for well over a decade now, but it was his first year as a head coach. He came in throwing haymakers at everybody. Will that soften a bit amongst his contemporaries and how he interacts there? I suppose that's possible. And Herb's interview was absolutely fantastic. Make sure you go to the Bigs and check that out. I even love one of the questions Herb asked Ben Johnson just about his interaction offense-defense. You know, using the terms us and we when discussing the Bears offense versus with the Bears defense. He's the head coach, but he's describing it as they, them, you know, and it indicates that he's not as involved defensively. And I love the interaction that Herb and Ben Johnson had about that. So I urge everybody to go and watch that play out, because in year 2 for Ben Johnson, and you guys will both be there consistently, that's where watching his growth and development as a head coach, as much as we watch the players develop, Ben may have to be an enhanced version of himself too.
Well, he said that he's been in every defensive meeting this offseason, which is different from last year when he was coming in and trying to teach everyone the offense. And so he feels like he is that much more well-versed. And I talked to him about, you know, he almost got hired by Zach Taylor to be a defensive coach because he wanted him on his staff, and he called it the dark side. I thought we got a good laugh about that. But we haven't heard George McCaskey's reaction. Dan and I, we were joking. We had very similar questioning towards George McCaskey about what he felt about the F the Packers comment in the locker room. Take a listen.
Do you like that he's playing into it? The rivalry? It's different.
It's the best rivalry in sports. The fact of the matter is they've had the upper hand for way too long. And to think that we're now in a position where we have what I think are the 3 critical elements to success: outstanding general manager, outstanding head coach, outstanding quarterback. They happen to have an outstanding general manager, outstanding head coach, outstanding quarterback. So it's going to be fun to watch in the years to come.
All right, so I asked George McCaskey, too, like, he had to have given approval for that video and clip to be released, and he said, no, I didn't. And I found that intriguing because we know the McCaskeys, given Hard Knocks, everything, they don't endorse cursing.
Right.
No one should, but it's very apparent. And so I found that shocking, Dan.
What they've endorsed with Ben is just be who you are. And that's what they've given him free reign to do, and that's what Ben has done. And certainly on that night, when they won a playoff game over the rival that had beaten them down for 30 years, it was worth letting out some steam.
I mean, God rest the soul of Virginia McCaskey, but it does seem that perhaps things have softened a little bit now that the matriarch is no longer with us, and George may be saying, you know what, just be you.
Be you. That's a great message. We got to take a break. Still to come on the offseason. Big Ant's back with his breakdowns, giving us 2 options he's eyeing for the Bears with the 25th overall pick.
I feel like Mesidor, just watching some of his tape, his bend is crazy. The way he's able to get around the edge, the way he's able to get off the ball, he's freaky. And he's got some traits that you can't coach. And I think a guy like him could come in and play right away because he's 25 years old, which is like, some teams might look at as a bad thing, but also if you need a guy right now to come in and play, I feel like a guy like him, like he's already developed, he's a grown-ass man, he could come in and definitely make some noise early on.
Max Crosby, a fan of Miami edge rusher Akheem Mesidor, and so is Anthony Herron. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chicago Sports Tonight. We're actually in the offseason. It's Friday, and I don't know what day it is, and we've been talking a lot this week. Cassie Carlson alongside Dan Weeder. Anthony Herron's at the big board, and he's returning, breaking down some tape. Is Akheem Mesidor one of your choices for the Bears at 25, even though he is 25 years old?
That is an interesting little juxtaposition there, but I certainly hope so. I hope he'll be available because I'm confident the Bears are evaluating his film at a high level. Now, his overall frame, it's not exactly your traditional Dennis Allen defensive end. He's 6'3", that's kind of on the low end from a stature perspective, and 260, he's dropped a few pounds. But just like we heard Max Crosby talking about, he is so versatile with how he rushes the quarterback. We'll check out his inside counter move and the way that he gets the offensive tackle unweighted. One of the things you want to do, if you're not just a pure speed blazer off the edge, you've got to be able to utilize proper footwork and hand placement to get into the offensive tackle. Look at the leverage that he ends up presenting to the offensive tackle. Gets that inside hand on the inside breastplate, makes a beautiful inside move. He can rush either edge, though. It showcases his coordination because a lot of defensive ends, especially at the collegiate level, they're exceptional in one spot. Are you a left end? Are you a right end? Are you a nose? We've seen throughout the collegiate career of Miami's Akheem Mesidor, but you go back to his West Virginia film, rushed a lot over the inside, and he does showcase he's got the ability to turn the corner. Now, here's what I love about him. He's a legitimate run defender. He can stack at the point of attack. Here he ends up having a pirate stunt down inside against one of the interior offensive linemen. But look at the hand placement there and able to get rid of that blocker. Sheds with violence, makes the play. When you have a guy who can set the point of attack and not be moved off the ball, and have the tenacity to get involved in the run action here, I think he's going to showcase that same type of versatility at the NFL level. And at every stop along his career, he was a playmaker. Very productive as a freshman, productive when healthy all throughout his career. Yes, there's a bit of an injury history, but I do think that 25 years old, for where the Bears are at right now, I don't think you necessarily want to draft some project in the first round. Akheem Mesidor is a guy who's going to be ready to come in and play right away.
And we've heard so much from the decision makers at Hallis Hall over the last 2 months about play style and the priority of that. It feels like Mesidor is a perfect fit in terms of that motor and the relentlessness that he has.
I agree. And because he's a guy who wouldn't be your traditional every down defensive end in a Dennis Allen scheme, I do like that you've got the ability to bump him down inside. And the Bears could do that within their scheme. That's where, like we talked about earlier, you hit the blocks early on the run, bump him inside down against the pass. He can rush well over a guard.
A quick question about Mesidor. Is his injury history with the foot surgery the reason why he would be available at 25?
That's a part of the reason. It's a part of the concern people have. The age and projection is part of it because people love to project how well a prospect may develop throughout their career. And then, frankly, he doesn't wow you. He's not off the charts elite with his stature and his physical traits, but he's certainly well above average. And, man, can he play the game at a high level.
Yeah, 12.5 sacks last season. That was third most in all of college football. Someone else you like? I feel like this is if he's available because everyone is mocking Dillon Thieneman to the Vikings, but if the Vikings don't take him, you like Thieneman.
I do. Love Thieneman. And frankly, he comps really favorably to one of our favorite Bears of recent vintage, Kevin Byard. Not only in his physical dimensions, 6 foot, over 200 pounds, and he's just a third-year player out of high school. He played right away as a true freshman at Purdue and then was able to develop this final season that he played at Oregon. And the safety position, a lot of folks are trying to figure out, where is Dillon Thieneman going to be best? Is he a free safety? Is he a strong safety? Is he a nickel? I don't necessarily see him as an every down nickel, but he's a guy who can be a movable chess piece for you. And for the Bears, you don't need a nickel. You got that short up in Kyler Gordon. But watch him run the alley right here. But the eye discipline to check the quarterback. This is Drew Aller in a gotta-have-it scenario. Dillon Thieneman called game because not only did he read the eyes of the QB, but imagine the ball skills, the velocity that this pass is coming in with. He's less than 20 yards away from a quarterback with one of the strongest arms in college football. And at the last moment, he skies to be able to go get this football, high points it, and that won the game for the Oregon Ducks on their way to yet another college football playoff appearance. I love his size, his tenacity, and the youth. That's in a different way than what we view Akheem Mesidor. Dillon Thieneman's still a young and developing prospect. The ball skills are very similar to what we saw from Kevin Byard, extremely rangy and tested off the charts at the Combine.
Anthony, if you walked into the safety store and you had to choose between Thieneman and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo, what separates those two guys from one another?
McNeil-Warren is just, he's like a transformer. Just his size, he's about 6'4", well over 200 pounds, and as physical as any safety you could hope to evaluate coming out. But he's fairly one-dimensional in that regard. So Dillon Thieneman, with what the Bears need in defense and the way they love taking the football away, how big a deal that was for them last season, I don't really see McNeil-Warren being a guy who fits exactly what the Bears would desire within this scheme because Dillon Thieneman can come in, he can give you some alley running, not as physical as you get from a couple of the other top safety prospects, if you include Caleb Downs, who obviously won't be available at 25.
Some people have him dropping.
He's not going to drop to 25. You know, he may drop towards the bottom of the top 10, but there's too much greatness on the film for Caleb Downs to drop very far. But then I think you get all of the above and exceptional ball skills from Dillon Thieneman.
All right, we learned this week that Fernando Mendoza won't be in Pittsburgh for the NFL draft. He's going to enjoy it with his family in Miami. Of course, he's projected to be the #1 overall pick. 16 other prospects are going to be there. Really quickly, any of these guys you think the Bears might call their name? Keldrick Faulk? Anyone? Think edge out of Auburn?
I think Caden McDonald is a guy who, with a specific skill set, I could see that happening with the Bears as a run defender.
Caden Proctor, he's been mocked a couple times.
Yeah, that's an intriguing one, and particularly would be as a potential answer at left tackle for them.
All right, and interesting, Ty Simpson, a little bit risky because a lot of people having him as a day 2 pick. He is going to be in attendance at the draft. We have to take one more break. Back with a little Masters fun when we come back. It's a tradition unlike any other. Masters Week out at Augusta National. So the Bears were asked who they'd want to be their caddies. Caleb Williams wants Jade Walker or Tory Taylor. Cole Kmet going Case Keenum, Cairo Santos, Tory Taylor, and Josh Blackwell. Another vote for Tory Taylor. Jade Walker, you said a little loud for the golf course?
Yeah, a little boisterous. That's what makes him lovable. I don't know if that would play well at Augusta, but give it a try, see what happens.
You definitely choose Tory Taylor.
Well, yeah, I'm getting kind of jealous.
Iowa.
I don't know why all the Bears teammates are looking for Tory Taylor to be their caddy. I mean, it must be the Australian accent. You can just get used to that on the golf course. It'd be kind of soothing during your putts.
Matt Eberflus did refer to him as some club once. I forget which one. He's like a trick shot, though, out of the golf bag.
Usually the specialists are most comfortable on the golf course.
Right.
Cole Kmet likes to golf, too, I think. That's why I would choose Cole, because I think I just know that he likes to golf, and he does golf pretty often.
Just golf down south somewhere. Hush, y'all.
Not here. All right, we have run out of time. For Dan Weeder and Anthony Herron, I'm Cassie Carlson. Thanks for joining us on the Offseason. You can catch all our content on our YouTube page and Fox 32 Chicago. We'll see you back here next week.